On October 5, 2022, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries and its allies, including Russia, agreed to reduce their oil production by 2 million barrels per day. This is so much oil that it accounts for 2% of the world's oil supply, and it could have serious consequences for economies all over the world, including the United States, the United Kingdom, and India. Given that both the United States and the United Kingdom are already on the verge of recession, this oil spike could worsen their situation, prompting the United States to pass the no-peg bill and the UK government to implement the price cap strategy. In short, Russia, the Middle East, and the West are now engaged in an oil war that could determine the fate of the global economy in 2023. So, what exactly is OPEC and why are they reducing oil production? What is this no-peg bill all about? What is the UK's price cap strategy? And most significantly, how will this oil war affect India and the rest of the world? To begin with, the abbreviation OPEC stands for Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, and this group includes oil-producing nations such as Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and 10 more countries. Furthermore, in 2016, they were joined by Russia and other nations, resulting in the formation of the OPEC Plus group, which now accounts for more than half of all global oil exports. Now the question is, why is this OPEC Plus plan to reduce oil output being implemented, and how does it benefit them? Simply put, they are generating a phenomenon known as supply-demand mismatch. Assume that there is a demand for 200 barrels of oil. So if there are 4 oil countries, they will sell at $30 per barrel, and each will produce 50 barrels of oil, resulting in an income of $1,500 for each country. What happens today if one of these countries deliberately reduces the supply from $50 to $10? Despite the fact that demand is still 200 barrels, supply is only 160 barrels. So, despite the fact that the other 3 countries could produce additional oil and make up for the deficit, they will not. Why? Because they can now sell oil for $60 per barrel. That is, they will sell the same 50 barrels but will receive a $3,000 profit. That implies higher profit despite using the same amount of oil. Similarly, if all countries reduce their supply by 10 barrels, they may raise the price to $70 per barrel and finally profit $2,800 apiece while delivering less oil. This is why, whenever OPEC raises or reduces oil output, it creates a rippling effect across the world. Let's look at this graph to see how things will be in 2022. This is the international benchmark for calculating oil prices in early 2022. Brent prices were approaching $79 per barrel before the Russian invasion of Ukraine, when they skyrocketed to $110 per barrel. This was the highest score in the previous 14 years. Why? Because Russia is the world's 3rd largest oil producer. Sanctions on Russia resulted in a fall in supply and an increase in demand. As a result, it remained over 100 for the next 3 months, till June and July. This is what sparked a worldwide inflationary spiral. Why? Because rising oil prices raise the energy cost of factories, which raises the cost of production and transportation, leading commodities prices to rise. This is how oil prices and production affect ordinary folks like you and me. Now, let's return to the oil prices. Looking at this graph from July, we can detect a general decrease in the price of oil towards the end of September. Prices had dropped to $85 a barrel, the same as before the Russia-Ukraine war, and most people felt the situation had returned to normal. The catch is that it will be in 2021. We observed large price increases when the global economy recovered. So, $85 per barrel was out of the ordinary. It was already a significant rise over pre-pandemic levels. In reality, shortly following the epidemic, the oil price skyrocketed from around $20 per barrel to $85 per barrel, and then again after the war to $210 per barrel. So, from the standpoint of the oil producers, the price of $85 a barrel in 2021 was fantastic since it represented a significant rise over the previous few months, but prices are currently declining from where they were during the war. As a result, oil producers are afraid that if this decrease continues, the globe would enter a worldwide recession as predicted. Similarly, oil prices fell to $20 per barrel during the COVID. When the next recession hits in 2023, demand for oil will fall, and they will be forced to sell oil at rock-bottom prices of $20 to $30 a barrel. This is why OPEC Plus has reduced output by 2%, just as planned, right after the announcement. The price of oil increased by 1.7%, from $91 to $93 per barrel. This is how OPEC Plus exploits its oil monopoly to dominate the global economy, and it is here that the US has a problem for 3 distinct reasons. Number 1. The situation in Europe is deteriorating, and as we have seen in previous episodes, if their energy bills rise, the government will need to borrow more money, which means more bonds will be issued in the market, which means less demand for bonds, which leads to higher interest rates, which eventually leads to investor pessimism. Eventually, the value of the currency falls, which raises energy costs once more. But this time, it's not just due to Russia or currency depreciation, but also because OPEC Plus has limited oil supplies, which raises prices. Number 2. The United States is already in a cost of living crisis, with inflation reaching 8.3%, the highest rate in the previous 3 years. So, if you notice what's going on, rising oil prices are a significant driver of recession, and OPEC is concerned that one is on the way. As a result, they are raising oil prices, which raises the likelihood of a recession. Number 3. When the price of oil skyrockets, Russia earns more money, which provides it with more resources to wage the war, which is why the United States is once again in trouble. Because of these price increases, Russia actually gained more money after the war than it did before the war, especially if you look at Russia's earnings from Europe, oil, and gas. You can see that the average from March to July in typical years was close to $50 billion. However, by 2022, this revenue will have nearly quadrupled to more than $90 billion. This is why the United States has opted to go with something known as the No-Peg Bill. According to this, the US may sue OPEC in court to punish them for weaponizing energy. Now here is the question. To begin with, the Saudi monarch, UAE officials, and Putin are not ordinary folks. Isn't that right? It's not like you can put them in jail if they don't obey the court's directions. So here's the question. What is the US's leverage, and what is the purpose of this bill? As it turns out, it's rather amusing. This is not the first time the US has attempted to bring this law to the table, and each time they have been blackmailed by the Southeast. Yes, you heard that correctly. This is where you must comprehend Saudi Arabia's immense clout over the United States and the rest of the globe. First and foremost, Saudi Arabia is the largest importer of US weaponry, and as this graph shows, they purchase more weapons from the US than the following 4 purchasers combined. So, although Saudi Arabia can pledge to boycott the United States in exchange for Russian arms, the United States cannot afford to boycott OPEC Plus and purchase oil elsewhere. So, if the Saudis quit purchasing US weaponry, the armament manufacturers will withdraw support from political parties, causing them to lose power. Second, why is the US dollar the world's reserve currency? Because Franklin Roosevelt and the Saudi king struck a pact in 1945. As a result, the Saudis have agreed to sell their oil solely in US dollars. In exchange, the United States will supply armaments and safeguard Saudi Arabia from foreign threats. This is why nations all over the globe have US dollar reserves in US banks, which are subsequently invested in US bonds, with a total asset value of $7 trillion in these bonds. That implies the United States will be in debt for $7 trillion, because the Saudis and other OPEC members buy oil in dollars. So that's the moral of the story. If Saudi Arabia starts selling oil in ruble, what will occur? Trillions of dollars in bonds will be sold in the United States, and the money will be invested in Russian banks, resulting in a total transfer of power. This is why, every time the US puts this bill to the table, they are blackmailed by the Saudis, raising the question, what makes this time so remarkable since the United States has been unable to pass this bill for the previous 20 years? This is where we have several discrete points that appear to be unique this time. To begin with, it's not just the US this time. The whole European Union wants to lower oil prices, as seen by Saudi armament imports. You'll notice that the majority of the weaponry are from the United States and Europe. So, given how messed up the Middle East is, the entire US-UK group may threaten to cease delivering arms to Saudi Arabia this time. It may be disastrous for the Saudis, given the country has a relatively small army of only 27,000 men. So, if the US evacuates its own soldiers in addition to cutting weapon supplies, the Saudis will be vulnerable. Apart from the United States, even the European Union, in response to increased oil costs, has implemented a price control approach for sorghum. And similar tactic will now be used for Russian oil, and in dire circumstances, it may even be extended to the Middle East. So what exactly is the price cap policy, and how would it assist Europe in controlling oil prices? So long as Europe buys oil, all European nations may genuinely join a cartel and agree to buy oil for only $60 per barrel, with no further fees. However, when Russian oil is sold to a country like India, when Europeans are not participating in any way throughout this entire negotiation, how can they keep this pricing under control? Let us try to grasp this with an example. Previously, ships transporting Russian oil sought to avoid sanctions or trade with India without drawing attention to India. They would just stop in China and proclaim the oil to be Chinese because oil is oil. Authorities found it difficult to check, and regardless of geopolitical events, shipping corporations didn't care about international relations as long as they generated money. This is why there were recent rumors that China was supplying Russian oil to Europe, which is why the European Union called in its insurance superpower. For those who are unaware, insurance is critical in the shipping sector because the worth of a ship might range from 600 to 1,000 crores, with the cargo adding another few hundred crores. So, overall, the ship's worthwhile going is a mind-boggling 1,000 to 1,200 crores or 125 to 150 million USD. So even if shipping corporations are unconcerned about penalties, insurance is really important to them because one major oil leak, one damaged ship might put a whole shipping business out of business. And the interesting truth is that an international organization of 13 marine insurance groups, located in London, insures nearly 90% of the entire world's oil shipping fleet. As a result, the EU has imposed penalties and regulations on insurance companies. As a result, they are compelled to refuse insurance to ships purchasing Russian oil beyond the price ceiling, and this is how things will play out. Assume William is an Indian customer of Russian oil. Then he'll have to get ship insurance. For this, he would have to provide a lot of papers in which he will have to explain at what price he is purchasing oil from Russia, and if he has bought oil at $60, but the price cap set by the West is $50, he will not be insured as a result. So, there you have it. Despite the fact that the European government is not involved in the dispute between Russia and India, European insurance companies will refuse to insure shipping businesses, forcing them to abide by the price cap by default. This is how concerned the European Union and the United States are about oil prices. So if the Saudis purposefully control oil prices, if the situation in Europe worsens throughout the winter, they will not hesitate to go all in and impose the same price caps on the OPEC Plus nations. This is the story of the oil watch between the Middle East, Russia, and Western countries, which gets me to the final section of the show. What impact will the oil war have on India? The first possibility is that OPEC Plus will continue to reduce oil output, raising oil prices and causing a recession in both the United States and the United Kingdom. As a result, all commerce and services from India to the West would be affected. Second, with rising oil costs, India's fiscal imbalance has reached hazardous levels and its currency is falling, potentially resulting in a calamity for the country. Finally, if the United States and the United Kingdom succeed in gaining control of the Middle East and Russia, and if oil prices are capped, India will profit since it will be able to obtain oil at lower rates. And the best part is that it will be able to preserve diplomatic relations with Russia, because it is no longer India that is driving down rates. Rather, it is European insurance firms that are driving down prices. As a result, the initiative will not focus on India. So in the midst of the oil war, all India can hope for is that India is unaffected as its currency and economy remain stable. That's all for now, folks. If you learned something, please make sure that you click the like button in order to make YouTube happy and for more insightful business and political case studies. Please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.